Can I ask, is this already being recorded or should we get that? Oh, I do see it is being recorded. Wonderful. Okay, so my name is Jennifer Lenhart and I will be your moderator for this event. And so we're very happy that you have joined WWF Cities webinar on urban transport solutions, a webinar exclusively for cities that have joined the One Planet City Challenge. I've just added a few logistics to our chat. So to note, please add your name of the city or organization you are representing. Please keep yourself on mute for the duration of the call until the end when we have discussion. Any questions you might have throughout the webinar, please do add into the chat, and then we will hopefully have some time for discussion at the end. And for those of you in Indonesia, we do have interpretation to Bahasa. So there should be a little globe, I believe, that you can click on if you would like to hear in your language. My colleague, Andrea, is joining us here, and she's behind the scenes doing a lot of the work, including she will raise her hand for us speakers when you have about 2 minutes left. So just to flag that so that we keep the presentations rolling. Wonderful. Okay, so for today's agenda, my name is Jennifer Lenhart and I am the global lead for WWF Cities. We also have two wonderful speakers and city experts coming from Oslo and from Pune, so Norway and India. That is Isaac Solomon and Magdish Digne. Wonderful speakers, had an opportunity to hear them before, so hopefully you will enjoy as well today. We'll start first with a quick intro, including to note that the One Planet City Challenge is currently open for reporting, so we invite you to again join this year. Remembering that if you have joined in the past, it is something that we run every 2 years, so you do need to actually join again this year. We will then go on to discuss the concept of what is streets for people and nature. And then much more interesting, frankly, is getting down to seeing it on the ground in the case of Oslo and Pune, and hopefully with some time for questions and answering. So let me see here. Great. So many of you have joined the One Planet City Challenge before. So this is probably a refresher for you, but just to keep you reminded, because we are also continuing to evolve in the work that we're doing with the One Planet City Challenge, we really see this as a space to democratize global scientific results. Meaning, how can we take that big data coming out from the IPCC and all of the statistics out there and make it meaningful for your city and the people in your city? So we do that through the One Planet City Challenge and the data that you report, and then that we review and analyze, and the individual feedback reports that we send out to you. These feedback reports continue to become more robust, and we're very excited about the work there, and also the dialogue that we can have with your particular cities. So again, do join us. This is done by reporting on the Global Standardized International Platform, the CDP ICLE platform. This is, of course, used for many different areas beyond the One Planet City Challenge. So we're very happy that it's been able to sync with so many other programs. And of course, joining there not only allows you to join the One Planet City Challenge, but to open up the global cities arena and stand up and be counted in your particular city on the work you are doing to support the Paris Agreement locally, as well as global climate negotiations. Within the One Planet City Challenge, we celebrate those cities that are really standing up, front running in their particular area as a whole on their climate ambition or on particular topics, today on transport solutions. And we do have a solutions stories platform that we're happy to share with you as well. And again, of course, the importance of collaboration, not just with the cities joining this call, but of course with other networks many of you are part of, such as the Global Covenant of Mayors, ICLE, C40, CDP, etc. And we're very happy to say that we ran a participant survey in the last round of the One Planet City Challenge, or the OPCC. And we found out that 83% of the cities that responded to that survey said they would like to join again. And 86% said that they would recommend to others. So we see this as a positive result. But please, we want to continue to work with you and continue to learn from you. And we can't do that without you joining the One Planet City Challenge. Excellent. So this is one of the offers that we have for cities, is to join our training and capacity work, including this webinar series. We've had different webinars on different topics to flag that the next one on city emissions inventory will be in June, either for yourselves or for other colleagues. We've had others in the past on science-based targets. Today is really about actions, where we're looking at transportation and other topics, including mitigation actions and monitoring. So all of these are either coming or already online. And I think hopefully Andrea can maybe pop in the chat now or later the link to see all the recorded webinars as well, because it's not just about today, it's about the series and how they all connect together. But today we are really looking at transportation solutions. And transportation, of course, is not just about moving around in our city. It's how we interact with our city and how we envision what kind of city we really want to live in. This is a photo. I used to live in the city of Amsterdam, and I recall every single day I would jump on my bicycle. I fell in love with that city all over again. And I think this is really where transportation is not just about movement, but it's about interaction. And so how can we see our cities in a new light by the transport solutions we use? So first of all, and we talk about where we want to go and envisioning where we want to go, but where are we when we start? And I always love this image when talking about transportation, because on average, 40 to 60% of public spaces in cities are dedicated to cars in the form of roads, in the form of parking, highways, freeways, etc. And this is not only a waste of space, it's also expensive. Urban sprawl is a big issue in many, many cities, and the cost of urban sprawl is often 3 times to provide the public services to those outlying areas. And of course, from WWF's point of view, thinking of conservation, sprawling cities eat up farmland, grasslands, forests, and wild areas. So this is something we need to think about when we start to plan our cities. Also, the societal costs, huge infrastructure costs when we start planning for cars versus, for example, planning for bicycles or other forms of transportation. This can also lead to raising of inner city rents. I know inflation is happening all around the world, so higher prices is something that we need to think about. And of course, health and environmental costs. And inequalities. How many cities around the world have seen, this is actually an image from Chile, where I am calling in from Santiago de Chile this morning, but how many cities does this image resonate with? Cars with singular vehicles, crowded buses or other public transportation, narrow spaces for cyclists, dangerous, frankly, and it's really about inequality of how we use our spaces in cities. And not just about inequality, it's also about air quality. And did you know, we often hear there are certain cities in the world that might be more impacted by air pollution than others, but roughly, according to UN data, 90% of urban dwellers breathe polluted air, and air pollution is responsible for over 7 million deaths a year. Children are also more vulnerable because they breathe faster. So this is something that we need to address. Traffic is contributing not just to climate change, but also to the unhealthy air that we're breathing in our cities. So this is something from WWF's side. We see, where is the focus going? Sometimes we hear so much in the news about certain dramatic issues out there, but sometimes the real drama is right in front of us and we're not paying attention to it. And who is looking at that in terms of the air pollution costs? Thank you, Andrea. I want to finish up here by just flagging a report, We Love Clean Air, that we put together at WWF a few years ago. And it looks basically at, the average commute time, and the average commute time being about 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, 500 people globally die from air pollution. At the same time, that air pollution costs $285 million in societal damages. Meanwhile, we're subsidizing that air pollution with $268 million in fossil fuel subsidies. And we'd like to encourage people to go by bike. The average commuting distance is about 12 kilometers, easy to do on an electric bike. Roughly 8 kilometers can be done in that 30 minutes on a regular bike. And going by bicycle is, of course, better for our air and our lungs. We also know it's not always possible to get by bike, so we also encourage our citizens to rally their politicians and demand better transportation networks. And so I'd like to just finish off here, if I can. Oops, it's hard to see. I've got all the different pieces here. I think if I can, well, this is a great graphic, and for some reason it's not downloading here, but usually it's a GIF, and it rolls out to show you a greener London if we didn't just dedicate all this space to cars, but instead dedicated it to people. I won't spend more time on that now, but maybe we can share that with you afterwards. And finally, I want to invite you to check out this link, and hopefully Andrea can add it to the chat, travelbetter.panda.org, where you can look at different ways to get to your destination, not only by the fastest way, but the best way for the environment and the best way for your health. And with that, I will happily hand over to Isaac to present on Oslo.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, hello everybody, and great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Isaac Solomon. I work as a mobility advisor here at the Agency for Climate in the city of Oslo. You can go on to the next slide, please. And Oslo is well, in the international context, a very, very small city. So the area is roughly about 454 square kilometers. Of those, 300 are forests, actually. So we're surrounded by our fjords and our forests. And as of now, we're a little over 700,000 inhabitants. And next. And so our work is roughly surrounded by our climate strategy, which is our mandate to act in line with the Paris Agreement. And this is our way to cope with the climate change and to reduce our climate greenhouse gases. And this strategy has 16 priority areas on different sectors. And it reflects our long-term strategic and decisions in order to act in line with the Paris Agreement there. Next. So it entails some goals, of course. So our mission is to reduce climate greenhouse gases by 95% by 2030. We also are trying to build a climate resilient city, so our capacity to withstand climate change will be strengthened. You can press next, because then we have our energy goals as well, that we are trying to also reduce our energy consumption. We are also working on managing our natural environment in such a way that our natural carbon storage are within the ground and stays within the ground, but also that that the uptake of greenhouse gases is greater due to our forests and our land use. And we also have started working on our indirect emissions as well, trying to cut down on basically our our indirect emissions through individual use, basically. So yeah, moving on, there are 3 sectors that are about 90% of the direct climate gas emissions in Oslo. So as you can see, mobility is one of the large ones. We, of course, do work on waste constructions and the residual climate gas emissions as well, but my work is basically on the mobility side. And moving on, I can go into detail on what we're trying to do here with mobility. So our climate strategy entails 5 priority areas for climate-friendly mobility. And one of those is, of course, land use, because how we build our city dictates how people, or the need for people's transportation, right? So that's our kind of overarching mindset that we need to bring with us, and I'll get back to that later. But we also have some more direct goals for our mobility in Oslo. You can move on to the next slide. So one of those is, of course, emission-free cars and public transportation, investing heavily in walking, cycling, and public transportation, but also emission-free vans and renewable heavy transportation. It's also a part of our work. I said we have 5, so the 5th one that is lacking here is also emission-free transportation on our fjords. So that means our boats and our ferries as well. We do also have some traffic reduction goals. So we aim to reduce our car traffic by 1/3 within 2030. That's measured from 2015. And we also have a 0 growth goal in line with our national government as well. That basically it says that the population growth are going to the population growth and the needs for the new citizens here in Oslo, the transportation needs are going to be met by cycling, walking, and public transportation. And on the first note here, so emission-free cars and public transport, and you can go to the next slide as well. So I think Norway is renowned for our high share of EVs, and as of now, the share of EVs in Norway are roughly around 34%, 13% for vans. And it's for the national, Norway as a whole is roughly around 24% of EVs, of all personal cars. EVs is electric vehicles, yeah. But we don't always just tailor for personal transportation, of course, and we would, most of our work is towards public transportations. So in electrifying the public transportations, well, our trams and our subway are already electric, always has been. And by this year, we're going to electrify all our city buses through tenders and our local PTA, our Public Transport Administration. And all our ferries will also be electric by 2024. And moving on, investment in walking, cycling, and public transportation is also a great deal of what we're doing and hugely important. And you can go to the next slide, please. And here, as I alluded to earlier, land use comes in. So what we're trying to do is densify around public transport hubs and mainly around our subway stations in order to get a dense city where you have your mobility needs right outside your door. That also means investing in local cycling infrastructure also around the same public transport hubs. So we have a strategy for this, and we have a plan for this, along with our neighboring county, Akershus. Yeah, this is kind of an overarching plan, a regional plan on city development. You can go on to the next slide. And what this means on city streets is basically that we're trying to redistribute the space and also change the street's purpose in line with the reverse triangle here. So that's kind of, yeah, that's our prioritization basically. You can go to the next one. And what this looks like in practice is basically this. So what you see down below is kind of the normal street where you have a lot of space reserved for parking. And what we're trying to do is redistribute that space and give it to cyclists and pedestrians. You can go on to the next one. Also here, this is on my morning commute every day to work. And here you can see, yeah, it doesn't look like much, but what we did here and what we've done here is basically narrowing this intersection. So this intersection was just basically very wide. It didn't have the green structure here at all. And it kind of stopped. So the pathway kind of stops where you see the sign on the right side here with the bicycle on it. And what we've been able to do with this narrowing of city intersections is making room for much shorter pedestrian crossings, making room for greenery, making room for climate adaptations, because the greenery here, as you can see, is making sure that the rainwater is actually handled in a good way. So this is a very effective, cost-effective step in order to redistribute streets within the city. You can go on to the next slide here. And I also said that we are trying to change the purpose of the streets here as well. And what you can see on the right-hand side is this is our city council in the center of Oslo, and this was a kind of a huge street open to cars and parking. And as you can see now, it's open to people, open to greeneries, and open to city life, and basically shut for cars. So that is what we mean by changing the purpose. Here you can also see some piloting projects that we started with a couple of years ago. They've been so popular that we see the need to also enact these measures this year as well. And this is basically where we've closed streets and opened them up to people and opened them up to greeneries. Giving the streets back to people, basically. Yeah, and I think I'm going to stop there, and we can go on to Puna and the discussions.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Isaac. And I have to say, I love that you shared the reverse transport pyramid. That was actually in my presentation, and I saw you had it. So we're definitely thinking alike there. And also thank you for making it personal, showing us your commute and the changes, because we work in cities, but we're also impacted by the changes that are made, both positive and negative. So appreciate that. I have a lot of other questions, but I know that we've got a great audience here and another great speaker. So I'll hold those for now. And over to you, Magnus. And let me just get to the next slide.
Okay. Thank you, WWF, for providing this opportunity for Pune City to present what we've been doing at this side of the earth. And as you see, look at the density of the city. You can move on to the next slide. Pune City has seen a lot of change in past few decades. And as you see, In 70s, 80s, it was a cycle city, and slowly it transformed to moped city. And now there are so many cars and mopeds also completely covering the streets of Pune city. You can go to the next slide. As you see here, our city is around 500 square kilometer of area with a population of around 5 million. And we do have a sister city adjoining to Pune, which is called Pimpri-Chinchwad. So that also adds up to the whole Pune agglomeration, so as to say. And if you look at the number of vehicles here, the number of vehicles are also on rise, and almost 3.8 million vehicles are registered in the city. But the good thing is that from past 4 to 5 years, we do see the number of public transport type of vehicles getting registered more than the private mode of transport. So public transport in terms of the bus and auto rickshaw, taxi cabs. So this is a very good move that the shared mobility type of vehicles are on rise. Well, in terms of climate action plans, Pune city is on the verge of preparing the climate action plan. And we have had a couple of emission inventories done in terms of air pollution. But with respect to greenhouse gases, we've had a carbon emission inventory done in 2012 and again in 2017. So it's high time that we need to have a latest carbon emission inventory so that we know where we stand in terms of carbon emissions. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is a slide, very interesting one that we did in the smart city movement. And when we surveyed around more than 0.3 million citizens, the outcome of the survey came out that the transportation and mobility is the highest priority for Pune city. So therefore, that sector got the highest number of attention, and then we had to make the plans and the designs which could improve the mobility in Pune city. We can go to the next slide. So there were a couple of surveys that were done, and we have had our comprehensive mobility plan also prepared. And as you can see that the average trip length in Pune city hovers around 8 kilometers. And our bus share is very low, around 12%. Walk share is around 25%. Cycle share is very, very low. But we are promoting now with new street design, the non-motorized transport. The vehicle ownership, as you see, Pune city has got the highest number of two-wheelers registered in the city. So out of the total number of vehicles, nearly around 70% of them are two-wheelers. And Pune city also is very famous for being the two-wheeler city in India. You can go to the next slide. For improving the mobility in terms of air pollution as well, we've been moving towards EV mobility, and we have recently formed the EV cell for Pune city. And our total public transport bus fleet is around 2,600. Out of that, we have recently, from past 3 years, launched 350 electric buses. And these buses have gained popularity. People have really started enjoying these buses. So looking at the demand, we'll be increasing our bus fleet to around 600. So that would be around 25% of the bus fleet would be electric. And these buses, as of today, have covered more than 40 million kilometers of travel. And this is a very good sign for us to improve our air quality, also reduce our carbon emission in terms of public transport mobility. And to improve our non-motorized transport, we've been taking cues from the National Urban Transport Policy and also the state government policy as well. So our NMT timeline has been from the Comprehensive Mobility Plan to Walk and Smart Pedestrian Policy, the Pune Street Pedestrian Program. Urban Street Design Guideline has been very important document that the local government has accepted. And now the street designs which are being retrofitted in Pune city are strictly as per the Urban Street Design Guidelines. We have a comprehensive parking policy The bicycle plan is also in place, and the public bicycle share program is also been launched. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. As you can see here, under the street retrofit program to improve non-motorized transport, this has been the transformation that has been taking place in a couple of streets in Pune city. We started this program under Smart City. We took 2 streets, did the transformation. We've had a share of difficulties while launching these streets. And but as these around 2 kilometer streets were launched, people around that area accepted that. And after doing that, now we are focusing on the core area of the city. So few other streets in the core area are also being redesigned as per the urban street design guidelines, wherein the non-motorized transport is given the a fair share of the road. We can move to the next slide. As we can see, these are the same elements that go into the urban street design guidelines. And these guidelines are there on the Pune Corporation website. One can have a look at these guidelines, download from there. Next slide. Yeah. So the same streets and some other junctions also which were designed as per the urban street design guidelines. So our idea is to convert around 100 kilometers of the street, and out of that, around 65 kilometers of the streets are already completed as per these designs. Next slide, please. So this is a network of street that we envision to convert into urban streets as per the new guidelines, and whereby the non-motorized transport is given the emphasis. Next slide. These streets are not only on the peripheral area, but also in the central area. Now, in addition to the street transformation, we also added an element of urban 95. Well, 95 stands for an average height of a 5-year-old child. And therefore, if the city has to be developed from a child point of view, then the city can be used by all sections of the society. So this is a very good program which has come from Bernard Van Foundation. And we have started incorporating the child-friendly ideas into our urban streets. And some of the streets we have picked up and added some of the urban 95 elements into this. Next slide, please. So some of the roads, again, where the street transformation is taking place, and also a facility for children. So on top right photograph, if you see, there's a small area which is given for the skating, the children who skate. So if we design, they'll definitely come. So we've experienced that, and till now we've never designed the streets for such kind of element, but we are experimenting with new things, adding new elements, and seeing a great transformation that the city is experiencing. Next slide, please. Well, these are some of the technical details where the 3-meter wide footpath, a dedicated cycle track, and the multi-utility zone, wherein it carries all the water supply, drainage lines, and power supply network lines, which are in the MUZ, that is the multi-utility zone. Next slide, please. Yeah. So these are again the designs aspect of it. So it's not only the pedestrians, but we're also looking at some of the sustainable materials and the green portion within the streets. We are using the recycled water from our sewage treatment plants, as well as some of the wells which were there in the streetscapes. We have converted, or rather, we have done the rejuvenation of these wells, and water from these wells is being used for doing the watering for the plantation and the landscape activity which is there on the streets. Next, please. Yeah. So we also celebrated our pedestrian day on 11th December, and last year we celebrated our first pedestrian day, and then the legacy is now continuing, and this year there were around more than 20 streets wherein on 11th December we celebrated the pedestrian day. So this was a great success, and now citizens have accepted this, and we'll be looking forward to having more number of streets that could be converted into pedestrian zone only. Next slide, please. So these are the different areas, the main arterial roads that we are proposing for parking policy. Though we have the policy in place, but the enforcement is still not yet happened. but this is our the network of streets that we have proposed in the parking plan. Next, please. Along with that, we also have the metro, which is coming up. So around 33 kilometers of the two main corridors of the metro is coming up in the city. Out of that, around 6 to 7 kilometers already launched. So we'll see that these mass transport corridors will be utilized by metro, and it will offload the transport demand on the city transport buses. Next, please. Along with the public transport system, we are also emphasizing on the paratransit IPT mode of transport. This is the auto rickshaw. So under the 15th Finance, under the National Clean Air Program, we will be giving a subsidy to these auto rickshaws to the tune of rupees 25,000 per rickshaw. So the scheme is ready, and we'll be launching that soon. Next slide, please. The municipal cars also we have converted into EVs. And as of now, we have around 40 electric cars which are already operational for the municipal services. Next slide, please. So we've had many interactions with other cities in Pune city. They are visiting our streets, understanding how we are bringing about the transformation. And it's a good learning and exchange program that we do with other cities as well. Next slide, please. We also have the Pune Resilience Strategy in place, which was done under 100 Resilient Cities program. And one of the emphasis of this strategy is to strengthen the low carbon and shared mobility. So we're going as per the recommendation of this strategy, and ultimately trying to decarbonize our urban mobility in Pune city. Next slide, please. Under the National Clean Air Program, there are many programs, projects which we have taken up, and our air pollution are on top priority right now. So our aim is to reach the level of for Pune city to become sustainable city and improve the air quality. That's all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Absolutely fantastic to hear both of you and to see similarities and also differences, and leaves me with a lot of optimism in a challenging moment, of course, with a lot of the climate data coming out. But when you see that real change matters to people in cities, it's incredibly inspiring. I also like that both of you kind of put transport in a much bigger environmental strategy, because it's not operating alone, but connected to so many other aspects: land use planning, but also climate change planning, etc. Magnish, very interesting to hear about the pedestrian day. We hear a lot about cycle days, but wonderful to hear what you're doing there. So hopefully other cities can take that idea. And also thank you for emphasizing the importance of child-friendly streets. We often hear, where are the children? Why aren't they outside? And it's really about the street design. So thank you so much for sharing that, and congratulations on your award. I think that's from ITDP, the transport award that you received. Fantastic. Really, really good. Okay, I have a lot of comments and questions, but this is a big group here. So I want to make sure, Andrew, do we have any quick questions, or shall I just kick it off to start? What do you think?
We have one question.
Okay.
From the city of Mataram, from Buri.
Mm-hmm.
So from your experience, how do we find a new revenue to replace vehicle tax as the number of vehicles decreases due to implementation of more environmental approaches? I think Buri
so it's about revenue.
Exactly. So thinking that it is a common problem in developing countries where they have very limited financial support.
Mm-hmm. Magnish, I saw you have unmuted yourself, and Isaac, if you have any ideas, feel free to jump in after.
Yeah, I would like to add here that, well, in India, the vehicle tax is collected by the state government, the transport department, and that fund goes to transport department. It rarely comes back to the city. But what opportunities which we have is under the National Clean Air Program, where the fund is coming to the cities in terms of the 15th Finance Commission launched by the federal government. So this is the fund opportunity that the city is making use of to improve the air quality. So it is not direct, but it's an indirect way of getting funds from the central government. Thank you.
Wonderful. I don't know, Isaac, do you have any thoughts?
Well, it's a dilemma here as well, because in Oslo we basically have our toll ring, so surrounding the city, and in different stages throughout the city we have our toll ring. So it's costly to drive your car through and in and out of the city, and basically the revenue from our toll ring, 99% of that revenue goes directly towards pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, as well as public transportation. So it's a dilemma. So it's not something we've figured out, but I mean, we're not yet at that point where we've managed to reduce car traffic in such a way that it really has an impact on our revenue. But what we're looking at is other types of income sources, such as instead of a toll ring, maybe road pricing and other kind of systems in order to bring in revenue.
Very interesting. Yes, I know Stockholm has that toll ring as well, and it comes with both challenges and opportunities. Excellent. Well, I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but in the meantime, we had two wonderful presentations, and I was very inspired. And, you know, one of the things that I love about transportation is it's so tangible, and you can physically see the changes in the city, whether it's Isaac's commute or the child-friendly streets of Pune. And I wonder, do either of you, after watching, you know, you guys are the experts on this on the ground, do you have questions or comments for each other's work, that's something that you thought, oh, that was great in Oslo and/or in Pune. And it's great to hear that Pune is catching up with Oslo in terms of its electric buses, but maybe anything that you wanted to just, you know, create a dialogue amongst each other. And of course, anyone else in here, feel free to add your questions to the chat. But also raise your hand. I know that this was done not as a webinar, but as a meeting format to allow for some friendly dialogue among cities and other representatives here. So yeah, first over to our wonderful speakers, and then if anyone else wants to jump in. Please, Magnus.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Isaac that your targets for EV is very near. In 2024, you want to achieve these targets. But what is that your city did in terms of policies and implementation to improve the EVs? Because we are making the EV readiness plan, but with technological change, which happens very rapidly. So how does the city gear up for the EV readiness?
Yeah, so thank you for your question. So there's a lot of measures that we've put in place in order to implement EVs. So one of those is of course the national tax, which we don't have any say in, but our national government has reduced the tax, the buying tax for EVs, which makes it more competitive against the fossil car. But what we've done within the city is that we basically prioritized EVs. So in parking, we've basically made it cheaper in the toll ring. We made it cheaper to park your EV. We've prioritized EVs in the public transportation lanes. So if you own an EV and if you have a passenger, you can drive in the public transportation lanes as well, or in the bus lanes. We've also, from the municipal side, we have grants. So housing cooperatives, for example, can apply for grants in order to build charging infrastructure. We also have grants for charging infrastructure towards enterprises and transportation firms, etc. Yeah, what else? There's a whole array of measures. It's kind of a package. So it's not only taxing, but it's of course prioritizing EVs. but it comes at a price, right? Because we know that people with EVs tend to drive more than people with fossil cars. So it's kind of the backside to the story as well. So you need to have two thoughts in your head at once. You need to think about car traffic reduction, but also implementation. And yeah, it's two sides of the coin in there. Yeah. But just to give you a question back. So I'm kind of curious, because what we are doing or trying here is trying to build our kind of a climate resilience streets. But we see here that we don't have much of an issue with heat. But how is Pune trying to kind of build cities and streets tackling heat as well?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for sharing the EV readiness actions. And if there's a document, definitely I would like to have one.
Sure, of course. Yeah. I'll send you a package of measures.
For Pune city, yes, from this year onwards, we are experiencing more higher temperature and some heat wave, which is almost all over the country. And under the climate action plan, we'll be also developing the heat action plan for Pune city. Also, that some of the policy level measures that we have taken is that we have recently put up a circular to the buildings to have the roofs painted with the high reflectivity paint. The SRI paint is what we call them, so that our energy demands are reduced, and also the temperature inside the buildings is, much more lesser with some of the measures. So green roofs is a policy that we'll be implementing in future. But as of now, there is a circular to the builders and the new building constructions to make their roofs paint white and make them green. And we'll be also increasing our green cover, though we have a lot of hills within the city that we have reserved as the biodiversity parks, which is under the development plan of the city. And we do have a tie-up with the forest department to keep those green areas intact. And at a city level, we have around 5 million trees which are there, which we have geotags. So preserving these trees and trying to keep the green city as green as possible. But of course, I saw in your presentation that you've got a vast area of forest cover within Oslo, where Pune doesn't have so much of area. So that still remains a challenge for us.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to hear what you're doing with buildings, because there's also a measure that we're trying to do here as well, is that, yeah, trying to make our roof basically green, or if green's not possible, then solar panels. So yeah, it's not about cheating. It's not only about streets and kind of the infrastructure underground, but also constructions as well. It's a big part of it.
Thank you, and thank you for the dialogue between you. I find it very interesting, because this is all about learning from each other. And I also like the conundrum that you mentioned, Isaac, about EVs. So it actually made me think. I wanted to share 2 slides with you that has always been kind of. Let me see if I can get to share screen here. 1 second. So this one I found it online, nothing special. But this is why, of course, when we're prioritizing electric vehicles or smart cars or whatever, it's still about traffic. So while cars will always be a part of our cities, and they need to be, we need to move around often in cars. But I think what you both have mentioned is, the thinking more holistically with people and nature at the center. And talking about cooling, this was the image I wanted to share, and I finally figured out how to do it. So I wanted to just a simple GIF, but How can we cool our cities? There's been a lot being done out there. There's something that WWF is a part of called the Cool Coalition, where we've looked at sustainable urban cooling strategies around the world. And there's a whole section in the work there on urban nature-based solutions for cooling, passive cooling. So I think, when we're talking about management and street design, it's not just about the vehicles, but it's really about the holistic thinking. And that was also something that we wanted to talk about in this webinar is how can we link land use planning and spaces for nature as well as spaces for mobility. So I'm going to stop there because I see that there is a question that came up from Rena, and I'll just go ahead and read it out and take over from Andrea, if you will. Sorry, Andrea, about public transportation with electric vehicles. So what target has it reached, and how is the battery waste managed? This is also an issue we've heard about in other conversations. What about public transport that is still using fuel? So both kind of the EV and the battery issue, and also how do you address public transport that is still on conventional fuels? If either one of you want to jump in.
So yeah, thank you for your question. Let's see here. So in regards to public transportation, we've basically have a target electrifying all our buses within this year. And we are meeting that target. So basically through our public transportation administration, they have their tenders. So what they do in the tenders, they demand basically the bus operators to drive zero emission buses. So that's basically a demand in the PTA's tenders. So that's basically the target that we reach is all city buses within the city or the city routes are now electric, but the regional buses, those are still on biofuel or biodiesel, not conventional diesel, but HVO. Which is something, so it's not quite zero emission, but we're getting there, and they have the target so the regional buses have their target to electrify the regional buses by 2028, I think it is. So yeah, the regional buses are still lagging a bit, but they're getting there as well. Let's see how the battery waste are managed. So that's basically the operator's responsibility to recycle buses or maybe sell them in order to another city that wants the EV buses, because there's but I'm not, you will have to ask our PTA how the buses are handled at end of life, but I'm guessing there's a system to handle the batteries. I hope that was answered to your question.
I think so. Magnus, do you want to jump in there, or there's another question as well? Either way. No? Okay. So a question then Andrea asked, and I actually had the same question myself, and I think it's about Oslo, or maybe it's about both cities. No, I think it's about both. Oh, she says Isaac, so I guess Oslo, but I think it is very relevant also for Pune, about working on changing some streets from being car-centered to citizen and nature-centered. And the images you shared, Isaac, also reminded me of some of the streets in Stockholm, where it's done also very similar, but primarily in the summer. So they're called summer streets. And they haven't been able to do it the whole year round. Obviously, people are not spending time outside there and it's cold. So maybe they want the parking. I don't know. But yeah, so citizens like them, but there's also a lot of hesitation, especially from car drivers, taxis, etc. So, and this might be our last question, just noting the timing. So if you guys could each just kind of answer quickly, how do you get over that challenge, that conundrum of we want better streets for people in nature, but there's a whole lot of backlash. And I know that's not only in your cities, it's definitely here in Santiago as well. And I think multiple cities around the world, probably everyone. Yes, over to you, Isaac, and then Manish.
I'll be short on this, and it's basically show, don't tell. Do it, change the street, try it out, and basically, yeah, take the backlash. There's going to be backlash, but there's also going to be support, because people want this. And it's also throughout the summer. In the winter, people don't really want to be outside except for skiing. But just do it and see what happens. Because I'll assure you, people that are on the positive side is greatly outweighing the negatives.
Excellent. Be bold. I like that. Magnus.
Yeah, I completely echo with what Isaac is saying. Show rather than saying. So I'll share one small example that when we were designing the widening of footpath on Pune streets, we've had a lot of resistance from the shopkeepers in the initial pilot project. But the idea is to make the footpath wider is by integrating the front space of the shops with the footpath on the streets. So that gives a very wider perception about the walkability of the footpath. And by integrating, definitely we have got more space where we can put some street furniture also. So people can enjoy the street rather than just walking on them. So that's how we are able to really attract more people. And initially the shopkeepers felt that they would lose business. But when they looked at these two pilot stretches, after a while, they realized that their business has not dropped. In fact, it's almost the same, or in fact, it has increased. So that brings in a lot of confidence within the city for other street shop people that, okay, by providing more NMT facility, it does not affect your business. So these are some of the live examples that we have to show it to the citizen, to the shopkeeper, to bring in the confidence in this. Yeah. Thank you.
What a wonderful way to end our session. I will quote you. We saw people enjoy the street. I mean, I think this is really about making climate action meaningful. It's not about what you're giving up. It's about what you're gaining, and supporting, as you also mentioned, local businesses and allowing them to thrive despite their initial hesitation. And I think we've seen that in city after city again. And I think what you have provided both of us is that tangible evidence of hope and change. So thank you so much for your wonderful examples in Oslo and Pune. I see Isaac has shared the street manual of Oslo. Hopefully, Magnus, maybe you can do either in the chat or follow up with Victoria and Andrea, and we will share in the notes afterwards with everyone. From my side, a huge thank you. Oh, you did already. You're so quick. Huge thank to our wonderful panelists. Extremely inspiring conversation today. I hope those of you in the call have enjoyed it as much as I have. It's 4 a.m. here, and I am wide awake and really excited. So thank you very, very much to everyone, and also to our team behind the scenes, Victoria, Andrea, and others who put this together. Do remember to encourage your colleagues to report for this year's One Planet City Challenge. We want to have you back. We want to continue to work with you. And yeah, I think that's all from my side. I don't know if there's any final housekeeping measures. If so, jump in, Andrea or Victoria. Otherwise, we can end this for today. We welcome you to one more Latin American focused session in the afternoon on solutions for this region, where I'm at. That will be in Spanish, but with English interpretation. I've got transportation on the mind. And otherwise, you should have information about our entire webinar series in the chat, and we will continue to share with you. So many, many thanks, Isaac and Magnus, for your inspiration and for the real work you're doing on the ground. And we will be in touch soon.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much.